Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today in our 2017 Chevy Silverado 2500, we're going to be showing you how to install the Pacbrake Air Helper Springs for the rear axle. Before we do that though, let's take a minute, we'll check these out and make sure they're going to work for you. Chances are pretty good if you're watching this right now, you've probably ran into some suspension issues whenever you're towing a big trailer around or have a big payload in the bed of your truck. You know, it's not a secret. Whenever you load everything down, truck squats and kind of kills your performance, honestly. You know, your ride quality is usually pretty bad. You're putting extra wear and tear on the suspension, you know, overloading it, which can increase tire wear. You know, a lot of times you'll start to get the inside edge to wear out faster than outside edge. And just the overall drivability, right? Usually braking is affected. Your steering, your headlights are pointed up, you know, and so with these, even with trucks like this 3/4 ton here, they can use a little bit of extra help. You know, these things are real capable nowadays, pulling these extremely heavy trailers around, and that's where a suspension upgrade like this air spring here would come into play. What it's going to do is provide us with some more load leveling support, getting our truck back at ride level, you know, the factory ride height, even when we're loaded down, and regaining all those performance aspects that we just talked about. One of the main differences between an airbag set like this and some of the other manufacturers is the quality, and that's not to take away from the other manufacturers. I've done a ton of airbag installations, and they're all pretty good, you know what I mean? But it's the small things, and this is the first time I've installed a set of these Pacbrakes and really got to check them out, get my hands on them. And as soon as I opened up the box, I was really impressed with them. Just the level of detail, you know what I mean? The brackets have a hammer tone finish on it, super thick. Feels like it'll hold up for a long time. All the hardware felt really good. The fittings, the nylon air tube is really malleable, and you can actually, you know, bend it how you want without it creasing and stuff like that. And even the bag, you know, there's a lot of reinforced steel in these bags. The plates are made from a different material, which I'll show you that in just a sec here. I got another one on hand, but it sounds like that these Pacbrakes kind of got their start or had a big influence into the tractor trailer world. You know, all those big trucks and trailers, a lot of them have the air ride, and you know, it sounds like they kind of designed and developed a lot of the airbags for those types of vehicles. So, you know, the demands of a tractor trailer are extremely high. Ton of miles, you know, terrible conditions. You got rain, snow, heat, everything in between. And so if you're going to put a bag on a vehicle like that, you want it to hold up. And so I can see how all that research and development and everything translated into these, which are now one-passenger vehicles. One of the things that kind of separates these bags from some of the other ones is the you know, the design quality of them. So more or less the main thing here is the plates on the top and the bottom that the actual airbag is clamped to. And these are really thick aluminum, and the threaded holes are right into the aluminum, as to where some of the other ones, this top part's plastic, and then there's just pressed in brass fittings in there. So with this style, you know, you're much less likely to have to worry about developing a leak from, you know, maybe one of the fittings coming loose, or even that top plate cracking under stress. With that said, one of the cool things about an air spring setup like this is the adjustability, right? So you can really fine tune and dial your truck in exactly how you want it depending on what load you're trying to carry. So you can go, you want to keep at least a minimum of 5 psi in these bags. Be sure to never let it go below that, but you can run it all the way up to 100 psi, all right, and everything in between there. So that's how you can really fine tune it compared to some of the other suspension enhancements, you know, like a Timbren or a sumo spring, for example, they would just more or less get bolted up here, and you get what you get. You don't get to fine tune it for your particular load that you're carrying. With that in mind, these do have a 5,000 pound load carrying capacity, and that's not going to, you know, add to what your truck can carry. That's just how much weight these are going to be able to handle. And to make adjustments easier too, you can always use a compressor system. So Pacbrake actually offers compressor systems. I have one here, and they look really impressive. From what I can tell, pretty well made. Airlift makes a really good compressor system too that I'm pretty familiar with. It's a wireless one, so that's always an option for you if that's what you're looking to do. This particular kit is going to work with trucks that are 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive, you know, gas models like we have here today, or diesel engines if you have one of those. And a lot of people wonder about compatibility as far as if you have an in-bed hitch, which makes sense. You know, chances are pretty good if you have an in-bed hitch, you got a heavy trailer and you're looking for some extra help. And it's hard to speak to, you know, for every single hitch out there, but they give you a couple different ways to mount up these upper brackets. And if you do happen to have an in-bed hitch and you have the plates on the side of your frame, chances are pretty good, having that alternative mounting method, that these are going to be compatible. So it's never a bad idea though, you know, if you're really unsure, you kind of go a step further. A lot of times you can see our webpage under the install notes and tech tips, and even, you know, look at what hitch you got and kind of go from there too. A lot of times you can find that information for sure if you can bolt something like this up or not. Other than that, at the end of the day, if you're trying to get a little extra help as far as your suspension goes, an air spring like this is definitely worth considering. It's a really popular upgrade. People have good luck with them, and I can see why, having that adjustability and everything else. It seems like these are really well made. I'm really curious to see how well they're going to hold up and everything else, but just from what I've read and what I've experienced today, I think we're going to have some pretty good luck with these. But as far as the installation goes, really not too bad. I mean, it's pretty straightforward for an airbag install. Everything fit pretty well. There's 1 or 2 times where some bolts were a little tight to get to, but you know, really shouldn't have too many issues. It's something you can do at home for sure, no doubt about it. But if you're someone who doesn't have the space to work on it, or don't feel like it, have the time, whatever the case may be, you can always use our dealer locator network, and hopefully that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can set something like this up for you. But if you're going to do it yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on them now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our truck, and I temporarily lowered and removed our spare tire just to give us some more room to work. And we're going to do the same thing for this heat shield here over on the passenger side. There's going to be 2 13mm head bolts holding this in place. So get both of them removed. Lower this down and set it off to the side for now. On each side of our truck, we're going to have these factory Johns pumpers, and we need to remove them. We won't be reinstalling them. To get them out, you can spray some soapy water, some lubricant in there, and then I just take a big pry bar, kind of work it up into the pocket. Pop this out, and from this point on, whatever we do to one side of our truck, we'll also do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. What you want to do now is lift up your truck in a manner that's going to increase the distance between the bottom of your frame rail and the top of your axle tube. That way, when we go to put our assemblies in and everything, we have more than enough room to get it up into position. Being that I'm on a drive-on lift here, I just use a jack to get that done. But for those of you at home that are using a regular floor jack, make sure to use jack stands and all the safety measures, and you're going to want to jack up your truck by the frame. That way the suspension will hang. Just over here on the driver's side, we're going to have this little bracket that's helping to hold up our e-brake cable. We need to remove that. So there's one 13mm head bolt. Get the bolt out of the way and get the bracket removed. On each side of our truck, we're going to have these little brackets holding our brake lines in place. We'll remove the bolt with a 13mm socket. And we can kind of just pull these away from our vehicle. Moving over to the passenger side, on the front side of our axle, there's another bracket holding our e-brake cable, and we'll pull this bolt out. That way we can get it freed from our axle housing here. We can start to assemble our air springs now, and if you grab one of them, you'll see 3 holes in the top of it. One of them, it'll be a little bit larger, that's where we're going to put our air fitting. And definitely recommend to put some pipe dope or plumber's tape on the threads of this. You will have to get it separately, but do that, and then we're going to thread this in. I usually get it about as tight as I can by hand. And I'll come back with a wrench here, give it a few more turns. You don't have to get crazy here, just get it snug. And my thought is, if it leaks, not a big deal. We'll come back, snug it down a little bit more, but I'd rather have to deal with that instead of really wrenching on this, cracking the fitting or something like that. Before we go any further, what I like to do is put some air in the bag to make sure that this fitting is indeed not leaking. It's just easier to deal with now as opposed to later on when it's up under the truck, because there's not a ton of room under there. And so what you can do, grab your airline tube, and it's just one big piece that they give you, and I cut ours in half, and you can do the same. And they actually give you this tool. It's really convenient, extremely sharp. And so this is how I'm going to do this. This is how you want to make all your connections. You know, when you go to plug into these quick connect style fittings, you'll just take the airline, set it in place, kind of a quick squeeze like that, and it cuts it pretty much perfect. You know, it's straight, there's no burrs, or it's not pinched or anything like that. And I'll plug this in. You'll feel it just kind of lock into place. And I'm just going to put a little bit of air in it. I'm not going to pump it up like crazy or anything. And how you can check for leaks is take some soapy water and spray it around your connection points, right? And what you're looking for is for bubbles to continuously and rapidly form. If you see that, you know you have a leak. In our case, it looks like we're all sealed up. I'm not seeing any bubbles emerging or anything, so we're in good shape. If you do see bubbles, then tighten this down a little bit more. You know, if it's still leaking, you might have to take it out, put more sealer on it, and try it again. But these are usually pretty good about not leaking. And we're going to disconnect this now. I'm just going to let the air out of it so it's not under pressure. But let's say, for example, when you get everything together, you know, you check for leaks again. Let's say if you have a leak where the air line goes into the fitting, how you would correct that would be to disconnect it. You can just push down on the little collar, right? And while you're holding that down, you can pull the air line out. And once you do that, recut the line, clean it up, make sure it looks good, plug it back in, fill it full of air, check again. That's, of course, once we have everything all put together, though. Back on the bench, we can now take one of the roll plates, set that on top of the air spring there, line up the holes, and then grab your bracket. These are side specific too, so make sure to check your instructions, make sure you have the right one. It's going to set on there like that. And then we're going to be using these bolts here. And for all the hardware that we're going to be using, I'm going to put on some anti-seize on the threads. And these are going to have a 7/32 Allen key opening. So we'll get these started. I just like to run them down by hand. Get them going here. And then once they're hand tight, come back with a torque wrench and tighten them down to the amount specified in the instructions. Can flip your bag over now, put on another roll plate, and then you want to take note of what side your fitting is on. Okay, so our air fitting is pointing this way, and that means when we take our lower bracket here, you want to make sure that this side of the bracket is going to be on the same side as our air fitting. So you'll set it up on there like that, and then we'll grab two more of these fasteners, just like we used on the top. We'll get them started and get them completely torqued down. With our spring assembled, you can now get it into position, and it's definitely a little tight. You know, you got to kind of clear some of your lines and things like that. But I'll get it close here and work it into place. We're gonna have this strap here. It's gonna set like that on the bottom of our axle tube. And on our lower bracket, so right here, you can take a carriage bolt, drop that through, and it's the same exact thing on the front side of it, like that. We'll take our strap and put that over the ends of the bolts, and then you can take a flat washer and a nylon lock nut. We'll just get both of these started hand tight for now. How you're going to attach the upper brackets of the frame really just depends on how your truck's set up. So if you happen to have you know, like a fifth wheel or something like that, where there's side plates on your frame. What you would do is line up the upper bracket. There's holes in the middle of it. You know, line them up in the middle of the frame rail. You drill them out. They give you these self-tapping bolts that you would run up in there. So that's how you would do that. Now, if that's your situation, with our truck, we don't have an embed hitch. So we're just going to use the U-bolts here. And these will just drop and go around the frame. Make sure you clear wiring and lines and everything. You don't want to pinch any of that stuff. So those will go down like that. And flat washer, lock nut will go on each end. It's going to be set up the same way here on the front. You take this strap now and get it about in the center there. Take a 9/16. Snug this down. When you're working carriage bolts or U-bolts like this, you want to kind of alternate sides. That way it'll all draw up evenly. We just want to get snug for now. Take all the slack out of it. For the bracket up top, you know, you just want to make sure that your bracket's centered and in the position where you want it. And we'll do the same thing for these U-bolts here. If you look at the lower bracket, there's going to be a hole and then a threaded hole. So our little bracket for our brake line, you can line that up. And then they give you a real short bolt, a flat washer on it. That's going to replace our factory bolt. It was originally in here. Get that going. Grab 13 millimeter and snug it down. You want to come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. They give you this clamp here for your e-brake cable to re-secure it. So the way this works, put it over it, squeeze it down like that, and then see if you can manage to do this here. We're going to put this on the end of this bolt, and of course the gas tank shield is right there, so it's kind of a pain. Get all this stuff out of the way. Once you get that pushed on there, just got another nylon lock nut. Once we get started and tighten down. Was able to get that nut started, and I'm not gonna lie, it's tight. You know, really no secret way to get it up there. You'll just have to fight with it a little bit. Did seem like on our truck, kind of pulling the plastic shield out of the way a little bit helped, but get it started, you know, and then come back with your 9/16 and tighten it down. on our passenger side. Did the same thing to get this air spring installed. There's really going to be one major difference, and that is the use of this heat shield. So they give you this, you can bend the tabs up like that, make a little ramp, and take your 2 clamps that they give you. I like to put them around the exhaust loosely first. And actually what I'm going to do here is just snug them up some. Just so there's a little bit of room between the clamp and the tailpipe. And you'll take your heat shield, let it around put the clamp over it like that. We're going to put it, to the closest part of our air spring. Let's say about like that. Looks pretty good. Snug that one down. That'll keep it in place. And pull this one over it and tighten it up as well. What we can do is route our air lines now, but before we plug them in and route them, we need to know where we're going to bring them to, right? Where we want our inflation valve fittings. There's a lot of different choices that you can do. There's brackets that you can pick up that zip tie up to the hitch. You can mount it that way. You can get creative. Some people put them in their fuel tank door. What I like to do is just replace our license plate screws, because then you're not really drilling holes or modifying a whole lot, right? And it's a pretty clean look. So with that said, we'll pop these little keepers out. So that's all that is, blocking our hole there. So there's already a hole and everything else. It'll be real easy to mount these up. I got our lines routed, and when you're routing this airline, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts or make super sharp bends or anything like that. I plugged it into our fitting like we talked about earlier, looped it up. I used some of the zip ties they give you to follow along this factory wiring harness. It comes out over here, and then I had a couple, maybe a couple feet extra. I just bundled that up. And then it took, the end of it there and put it through the hole in our license plate, those pieces that we just removed. So I pushed that through. And as far as the other side goes, since we're right here, did the same thing and just ran it along through here. And on this side, I actually went into our frame rail. I just pushed it in to the opening. You can kind of see a piece of it there, where it continues along. And since our exhaust is right here, I wanted to do my best to keep it as far away as possible. And so I brought it out of our frame rail, and where it comes out, I took maybe a foot-long piece of wire loom that I had laying around. Put that on, not only a little extra heat protection, but so it's not going to rub up on this metal. Zip tied it to our bracket and plugged it in. Here's where our fittings come through. You can take your plate, slide that right over it. You'll have flat washer put on, and then the nuts here. And with these, manage to get it started. With these, I usually don't really tighten them down too much. I don't get a wrench or anything out. I usually just come in with a 1/2-inch deep well socket and just kind of snug them up by hand. That's more than enough. And with that all set up now, we'll put some air pressure in our system That way we can check for leaks, any clearance issues, things of that nature. I sprayed everything down. We don't have any leaks, you know, after looking everything over, no clearance issues. And what you can do now is put that heat shield back, raise the spare tire up, and that's really all there is to it. So with that said, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Pacbrake Alpha rear suspension enhancement on our 2017 Chevrolet Silverado 2500.